I really need to file a report on somebody.
What exactly happened?
I broke up with this guy a couple of days ago, and he's telling me that he's going to kill me and that it's going to be remembered for a long time.
I've been staying out of the way of law enforcement all this time. I thought I was doing the best thing by not coming down on law enforcement. And it's been too many years of no action. Nothing's been done. So I'm tired of waiting. I had the investigator over the case right now out of Scurry County. He told me one time, he said he doesn't care if it takes 20 years to do this. And I do care if it takes 20 years. I don't want the person that hurt my kid that doesn't need to walk the street for 20 years.
Colorado City, Texas. Population just under 4,000 people. The kind of town where everyone knows your name, where neighbors wave from porches and kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. A place where, for the most part, nothing much ever happens. But on the morning of December 27, 2010, something did happen, and for years no one could prove it. A 13-year-old girl woke up in her bed on Chestnut Street. Her mother had already left for work. Her brother was at a friend's house. The house was quiet. The day stretched out ahead of her with nowhere she had to be, and no one expecting her until later. By that evening she was gone. No one saw her leave. No one saw her walking. No camera caught her face. No witness placed her anywhere. She simply disappeared from the middle of a small town in broad daylight. And the people who should have known exactly where she was didn't. Her name was Hailey Dunn. And this is what happened to her. To understand what happened to Hailey Dunn, you first have to understand who she was. Her father, Clint, described her as a tomboy who loved glittery and pretty things. And somehow, that contradiction made perfect sense to everyone who knew her. She was the kind of girl who could throw a ball across a field and then come home and spend an hour picking out earrings. By the time she reached 8th grade, she was playing volleyball, basketball, and softball. She played saxophone in the school band. She was a cheerleader. She was funny, outspoken, and completely unafraid to say exactly what was on her mind. Her mother, Billie Jean Dunn, said she always remembered her laugh, her big smile, how funny she was. Her friends said she lit up a room. Hailey's parents had separated when she was 10 years old. After that, she and her older brother David went to live with their mother on Chestnut Street. Their father, Clint, lived just across the road, and for Hailey, that proximity was everything. She visited him every single day, sometimes just popping in before school to say good morning, sometimes staying for dinner. It was routine. It was reliable. For a girl whose home life carried more turbulence than most people realized, that daily walk across the road to her father's house was an anchor. Because behind the cheerleading and the laughter and the busy school schedule, things at home on Chestnut Street were not always easy. Billie Jean had been in a relationship with a man named Sean Adkins for some time. Sean went by his middle name, Casey, to some people. To others, he was simply Shaw. He lived in the house with Billie and the children. Billie herself described their dynamic as more like friends than anything else. But people close to Hailey told a different story. Hailey didn't like Sean. She was afraid of him. She told her grandmother, Connie, that she would sometimes lie awake at night and see his shadow outside her bedroom door, standing there in the dark. She never knew if he would come in. She was terrified. That detail, a 13-year-old girl lying still in the dark watching a shadow under her door, is not a small thing. It tells you something about what daily life looked like for Hailey Dunn. And it makes what happened next all the more difficult to sit with. Christmas 2010 was, by all accounts, a good one. Hailey had received a new iPod that year and was thrilled with it. Her grandmother Connie said she was in great spirits, energetic, happy, herself. She spent most of Christmas Day and the day after with her father. Her brother David was around too, and for those 2 days things felt normal. On the evening of December 26th, David left to stay the night at a friend's house. Hailey stayed home and played video games late into the night. It was the last ordinary night of her life. The morning of December 27th began like any other in that house on Chestnut Street. Sean left for work at 5:30 in the morning. Billie followed about an hour later, heading out to start a 12-hour shift. Before she walked out the door, she checked on Hailey. The girl was sound asleep in her bed. Everything looked fine. Billie left her personal cell phone at home so the kids could use it if they needed to, and she assumed that when Hailey eventually woke up, she would do what she always did. Get up, get dressed, and walk across the road to her father's house. That was the routine. That was the expectation. But Hailey never knocked on her father's door that day. Clint was used to seeing his daughter every single day. When she didn't show up on the morning of the 27th, he noticed, when she still hadn't come by the afternoon, he was unsettled. He didn't hear from her once. Not a call, not a message, nothing. For a girl who made a point of seeing him daily, her absence was loud. At around 2 o'clock that afternoon, a text was sent from the cell phone Billy had left at the house. It was sent to one of Hailey's friends. Just a casual message asking what they were up to. The friend never replied. And that text would later become one of the more quietly unsettling details in the entire case, because no one could say with certainty who actually sent it. Sean, meanwhile, had his own version of how that day unfolded. He said he arrived at his job in Snyder at 6 in the morning, got into a fight with his boss 10 minutes after arriving, and quit on the spot. He then said he drove directly to his mother's house in Big Spring, nearly 50 miles away, to use her computer to file for unemployment benefits. After that, he said he returned to Colorado City and arrived home just before 3 in the afternoon, where he saw and spoke to Hailey for the last time at around 3:15. He said she told him she was heading to her father's house, and then planned to spend the night at her friend Mary Beth's. That was his story, but almost nothing in it held up. His former employer told investigators that Sean had not been fired. He had shown up at 6 and bought a drink, handed in his uniform, and walked out of his own accord. He had quit, voluntarily. When confronted about this later, Sean admitted he had lied. He said he told Billy he'd been fired to avoid an argument. Then came the cell phone records. Between 6:35 and 6:56 that morning, Sean's phone was pinging off a tower in Colorado City, nearly 50 miles from Big Spring, where he claimed to already be. The data did eventually place him in Big Spring, but not until between 9:38 and 2:40 in the afternoon. And further tower pings placed him in Scurry County at some point during that day. The same county where 2 years later Hailey's remains would be found. His claim that he was back in Colorado City by 3 o'clock, having left Big Spring at 2:40, would have required him to complete a 40-mile drive in 20 minutes. He also said he saw and spoke to Hailey at 3:15. But Hailey's brother David returned home at around 4 that afternoon. The front door was locked and no one answered when he knocked. He eventually climbed in through a window. When he got inside, he found Sean standing in the hallway. David later said Sean looked like a deer in headlights. When Billy was picked up from work by Sean that evening, she came home to a house with no Hailey in it. She asked Sean where she was. He told her Hailey had walked to her father's and then planned to stay the night at Mary Beth's.
That was my day, and then I came home around, I guess, like 3 o'clock I got there, and Hailey was there watching TV in the living room, and I went to me and Billy's bedroom, and she came in there and told me that she was going to her father's house and that she was staying the night with a friend, and then she left. And then I was there by myself for maybe an hour at the most, and then David and a friend came over, and I went to his room, and they were playing video games and so forth, and Billy called me and told me that that her relief got there and that she's going to get to leave a little early, so I was up there at the hospital in Snyder around 6 o'clock to pick her up, and then we came back, and then we went to bed shortly after that.
And this whole time you were thinking Hailey was at a friend's house?
Yes.
About what time did she say she was leaving then?
What time Hailey was leaving?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was sometime in between 3 and 3:30 when she said she was leaving. It was like shortly after I got there. I'm not real sure about a time.
Does she normally call and check in every so often, or is it normal to not hear from her for so long?
It's pretty normal for her just to not call, because she usually does that, though, because she does stay the night at a friend's house. She'll be back the next morning.
Billy didn't question it that night. She assumed it was true. But when the next morning came and went with no sign of Hailey, Billy made a phone call. She reached Mary Beth's parents. Hailey had never been there. She hadn't been to her father's either. Nothing was missing from her room. Her belongings, the things you'd take for an overnight stay, were still exactly where she left them. A missing persons report was filed on the afternoon of December 28th, and what began as a disappearance in a small Texas town was about to become something that the entire country would be watching. When a child goes missing in a town of 4,000 people, word travels fast. Colorado City mobilized almost immediately. Neighbors, strangers, friends of the family, people who had never met Hailey Dunn showed up ready to search. Flyers were printed and distributed. Billboards went up across Texas and into neighboring states. The community poured its energy into finding a girl most of them knew, by face if not by name, because in a town that small, you know almost everyone. Investigators initially classified Hailey's disappearance as a runaway case, a decision that would later draw significant criticism. It was reclassified as a missing child case shortly after, but the early misclassification meant that valuable hours in the immediate aftermath were not treated with the urgency they deserved. The Texas Rangers and the FBI came on board on January 4, 2011, 8 days after Hailey was last seen. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children had already joined the effort. Search dogs tracked Hailey's scent through the neighborhood, eventually leading investigators to a nearby motel. Every one of its 24 rooms was searched. Staff were interviewed. Surveillance footage was reviewed. There was nothing. No sign that Hailey had ever been there. As the search expanded into more rural areas, open fields, wooded stretches, the kind of terrain that lies quietly on the outskirts of a small Texas town, something became increasingly visible to the people around the family. Hailey's father, Clint, was everywhere. He rifled through dumpsters, he walked alleyways, he knocked on doors. He stood on his porch in the cold with binoculars, scanning the street for any sign of his daughter. People who were there described a man consumed entirely by the need to find her, unable to eat properly, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything else. The same could not be said for everyone in that house on Chestnut Street. Billie Jean said she was willing to hand out flyers and speak to the media, but she would not search wooded areas or open fields. She explained that doing so made her feel as though she was looking for a body, and she couldn't bring herself to accept that possibility. People around her understood the sentiment on its surface. Grief takes many forms, but for those watching closely, something felt off. Sean Atkins did not hand out flyers. He did not participate in any searches. He did not engage with the investigation in any meaningful public way. He remained, as multiple people described it, completely removed, distant in a way that went beyond grief or shock. 4 days after Hailey was reported missing on New Year's Eve, Billie and Sean hosted a gathering at the house on Chestnut Street. Family and friends came over. Billie later said she hadn't even realized what date it was, and that people had simply come to support her. Clint stood on his porch across the road that night, watching through binoculars as the lights stayed on and the evening wore on. "I don't see how you can celebrate the new year when your daughter is missing," he said. "That should be the last thing on your mind." As investigators dug deeper, the picture of life inside that house began to change. People close to the family described an environment shaped by heavy drinking, frequent partying, and an instability that Hailey and her brother had been quietly navigating for years. About 10 months before Hailey disappeared, police had been called to the house on Chestnut Street following a domestic disturbance between Billie and Sean. Both had called the police to report the other. Officers arrived to find the couple argumentative and combative.
I really need to file a report on somebody.
What exactly happened?
I broke up with this guy a couple of days ago, and he's telling me that he's going to kill me and that it's going to be remembered for a long time.
I got a situation on my hands. I have a ex-girlfriend. She's taking me a whole bunch of anxiety pills that I take. So I guess she got them from me, and she said she took a bunch of her same pills too. And she's saying that she wants to die, so she filed a report on me, for threats and stuff like that. She was just upset about it. She's just, not being herself right now.
Threatening to kill her.
Damn it.
It's Hailey Dunn.
Oh, God. He's been going all day. Alright, I'll go up there.
As was common with them, they patched things up not long after, and Sean moved back in. Detectives asked both Billie and Sean to take polygraph tests. The first attempt had to be abandoned entirely. Both were under the influence of substances at the time. Billie said hers was a prescribed anti-anxiety medication. They were asked to return for a second attempt. Billie completed her second test. The results indicated deception on several key questions. Sean's experience with the polygraph was a story in itself. He walked out at least twice. On the third attempt, he completed only the first stage before stopping. He told investigators he felt the process had become a witch hunt, that they were trying to pressure him into confessing to something he hadn't done. But before he walked out for the final time, he gave the detectives 2 answers that stopped them cold. When asked where he thought Hailey might be, Sean said, Scurry County. When asked who police should be looking at as suspects, he said, both of us. The polygraph indicated both answers were truthful. He refused to elaborate on either one before walking out and never completing the second stage. Those 2 answers would echo through the investigation for years. In January of 2011, Sean was officially named a person of interest. Billie asked him to leave the home. though this, investigators noted, was not unusual for them. They had a pattern of separating and reconciling. David, Hailey's brother, was removed from the home by Child Protective Services shortly after. Then in late February, the investigation uncovered something that shifted the entire atmosphere of the case. And during searches of the home and connected devices, authorities discovered more than 100,000 images of child pornography. They were found on a memory stick in Billy's home and on a computer at Sean's mother's house. A laptop was also seized and held at the police station, but Clint Dunn later told the media that Sean's stepfather went to the station and demanded the laptop be returned. It was. No arrests were made in connection with the child pornography at that time. The matter was presented to a grand jury, but the question of who in the household was responsible for the material complicated any immediate action. Then investigators found something else inside the house, something harder to explain away. Billy and Sean had printed hundreds of articles from the internet. The subject matter across all of them was consistent: serial killers, sexual sadism, and the murders of family members. Billy said it was simply an interest of theirs, that plenty of people followed true crime, that there was nothing unusual about it. But by this point, investigators were no longer inclined to take her word for anything. On March 17, 2011, officers went to the house to speak with Sean. Billy told them he wasn't there. They entered on a warrant and found him hiding inside. Billie Jean Dunn was arrested and charged with lying to police. She was later sentenced to a suspended 90-day jail term and a year's probation, which she served over 250 miles away in Travis County, where she had since relocated with Sean. The pair would eventually break up for good in 2012. By then, the case had gone quiet in the way cold cases do, not forgotten but stalled. Tips would surface around vigils and anniversaries, only to lead nowhere. The searches grew smaller, the media coverage thinned, and Hailey Dunn remained missing. Until the spring of 2013. On March 16, 2013, a hiker moving through open land near Lake J.B. Thomas made a discovery that no one wanted to make: human remains.
2013, local authorities were notified of human remains located near Lake J.B. Thomas in southwest Scurry County. The remains were sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for DNA analysis. On April 26, 2013, the Scurry County District Attorney's Office received written confirmation that the remains have been positively identified as those of Hailey Dunn.
The location was in Scurry County, approximately 20 miles from Colorado City, the same county Sean Adkins had named unprompted when asked during a polygraph where he thought Hailey might be. It took time for a formal identification to be made, and the waiting was its own kind of cruelty for a family that had already been waiting over 2 years. But the confirmation eventually came. The remains were Hailey Dunn's. She had been out there the entire time. Authorities did not publicly confirm a cause of death, but Clint was told by investigators that Hailey had most likely died as a result of blunt force trauma. She had been 13 years old. The community grieved all over again, this time with the particular weight that comes not from uncertainty, but from knowing. There's a different kind of pain in confirmation. The hope is gone, and what replaces it is something harder and quieter and more permanent. For Clint Dunn, grief and determination were inseparable. He had spent every day since December 28, 2010 fighting for his daughter, and the discovery of her remains did not slow him down. If anything, it sharpened him. He knew who had done this. He had known for a long time, and now he needed the system to catch up. The family had to wait 4 more years before they could even lay Hailey to rest.
Mother, desperate to find her daughter's killer, is speaking out. It was 6 years ago when 13-year-old Hailey Dunn went missing after leaving her father's home in Colorado City, that's west of Abilene. Her remains were found 3 years later, but her killer remains at large. Her mother, who is from Austin, says she has hope justice will be served.
I still want to believe every time you tell me that there's going to be an arrest soon.
Due to the ongoing investigation and the need to preserve evidence, her remains were held. It was not until January of 2017, more than 6 years after she disappeared, that Hailey Dunn was finally buried. 6 years. In the years that followed the discovery of her remains, the case moved slowly and then for long stretches, not at all. Investigators held their cards close. The district attorney's office was quiet. The Texas Rangers, who had been involved since early on, continued working in the background, but publicly there was little to show for it.
I've been staying out of the way of law enforcement all this time. I thought I was doing the best thing by not coming down on law enforcement. And it's been too many years of no action. Nothing's been done. So I'm tired of waiting. I had the investigator over the case right now out of Scurry County. He told me one time, he said he doesn't care if it takes 20 years to do this. And I do care if it takes 20 years. I don't want the person that hurt my kid that doesn't need to walk the street for 20 years.
You think that person is still out there somewhere?
Yeah. I think he's here in this town. Big Spring, Texas.
You think he's in Big Spring?
Mm-hmm. I know he was 2 months ago.
You have somebody in mind?
Sean Atkins.
You think it's Sean Atkins, the only named suspect?
Yep. And I think that Billie Jean knows something. She said too many lies. She's avoided too much. And she knows more than what she said.
Tips came in around anniversaries. Vigils were held. Clint kept pushing. He took to social media with a persistence that became something of a lifeline for the case. He posted about Hailey regularly, updates, memories, appeals for information. He never let people forget that his daughter's killer had not been held accountable. And it was through one of those posts that something unexpected happened. Sometime in 2019, a person reached out to Clint through social media. This individual explained that during the late spring and early summer of 2011, months after Hailey disappeared, they had stumbled across several items while going about their daily life. At the time, they were in middle school. They had no knowledge of Hailey or her case and had no idea what they had found, so they said nothing. Years later, seeing one of Clint's posts, something clicked. They remembered what they had found and where. They came forward. The items and their precise location have never been publicly disclosed, but Clint confirmed that what they had found was located in an area that had been searched multiple times in the earliest stages of the investigation, an area that had been walked, combed, and cleared, and yet the items had been there. That detail raises questions that have never been fully answered, questions about how thorough those early searches were, about whether the right people were looking in the right places, about whether the investigation, from its very first days, had been compromised by the decisions that were made, and the ones that weren't. Private investigator Erica Morse had been working alongside Clint since the beginning. She had gathered evidence, spoken to officials, and pushed wherever she could push. But after Hailey's remains were found, she said the official channels went silent. Calls went unreturned, updates dried up. The machinery of the investigation appeared from the outside to have stopped moving. Then in October 2019, Erica began receiving messages from women across West Texas. They were being harassed online by a man using the name Casey, Sean Atkins' middle name. Erica asked the women to send her the photos and videos this person had sent to them. One look confirmed it. It was him. On October 28, 2019, Erica accompanied one of the women to the local police department to file a report. They were turned away. The officer they encountered accused the victim of fabricating the story entirely. Erica Morse responded by writing an open letter, public, direct, and unambiguous. In it, she warned that if Sean Atkins was not arrested, more victims would follow. She named what she had found, she named what had been ignored, and she kept pushing. 2 more years passed. But in May of 2021, something shifted. The Mitchell County District Attorney's Office reached out to Erica and requested a meeting with her and Clint. They sat down together, and what they were told in that room was something they had been waiting over a decade to hear. They were told that within the month of June, Hailey's killer would be arrested. The Texas Rangers had obtained a warrant for a sample of Sean Atkins' DNA. The Unsolved Crimes Investigation Program had been working the case. And on June 13th, 2021, 10 years, 5 months, and 16 days after Hailey Dunn was reported missing, a warrant was issued and Sean Casey Atkins was arrested and charged with her murder.
Reaction from Colorado City tonight is emotional and also getting straight to the point. Sean Atkins is sitting in the Mitchell County Jail tonight charged for the murder of 13-year-old Hailey Dunn. She first went missing over 10 years ago. You know, this community, they have spent more than a decade searching for a young girl, searching for answers, searching really for justice. We are a step closer to that tonight. The arrest of Sean Atkins is what the community of Colorado City has been waiting on for a...
He was held on a $2 million bond. Billie Jean, who by this point had long since separated from Sean, and said she had come to believe he was responsible for her daughter's death, responded to the arrest with a statement that carried the particular complexity of someone who had been both a grieving mother and, for years, a person under suspicion herself. Clint Dunn said there were no words to define how he felt. Erica Morse called him the template for every parent who has ever fought to find justice for their child. For the first time in over a decade, it felt like the end of something. Or at least the beginning of an ending. But justice, it turned out, was not finished making this family wait. An arrest is not a conviction. That distinction matters in every criminal case. But in cases like this one, cases built over years, shaped by early missteps, complicated by the passage of time, it matters more than most. Because the road from an arrest to a courtroom is long, and not everyone makes it to the end of it. Sean Adkins did not. In 2023, the murder charges against him were dismissed. The reasons cited came down to problems with the Venus and issues stemming from decisions made in the earliest stages of the investigation. Decisions made in those first critical days and weeks when the case was still being treated as something other than what it almost certainly was from the very beginning. No new charges have been filed. No one else has been arrested. No one has been convicted of the murder of Hailey Dunn. The case is officially unsolved. It is worth sitting with what that means. Not in legal terms, but in human ones. A 13-year-old girl left her house on Chestnut Street and never came back. Her remains lay in open land in Scurry County for over 2 years before anyone found them. A man who named that county unprompted, who told investigators to look at both of them, whose phone placed him in places his story could not account for, who was found hiding in the house the day officers came to question him. That man walked out of this without a conviction. The investigation that was meant to deliver justice for Hailey was undermined, at least in part, by the very people responsible for conducting it. The early misclassification of her disappearance. The laptop returned to the suspect's family. The women turned away at the police station in 2019. The years of silence that followed the discovery of her remains. Each decision, each failure, each moment where the system did not do what it was supposed to do, all of it accumulated. And in the end, it was enough to unravel a case that had taken over a decade to build. Clint Dunn has never stopped. He is still pushing, still talking, still carrying his daughter's name into every room he enters and every conversation he has about what happened to her. If this case ever moves again, if new evidence surfaces, if someone finally decides to come forward, if the system finds a way to right what it got wrong, it will be because of him. Hailey Dunn was a 13-year-old girl from a small town in Texas. She was a volleyball player, a basketball player, a softball player. She played saxophone. She cheered for her school. She visited her father every single day because she loved him and because those visits grounded her in a life that was harder behind closed doors than it ever appeared from the outside. She had a big laugh, a big smile, and absolutely no intention of keeping her opinions to herself. She deserved better than what happened to her. She deserved better than what came after. There are people in this world who know exactly what happened on Chestnut Street on the morning of December 27, 2010. There are people who know what happened in the hours that followed, and how a 13-year-old girl ended up 20 miles from home in the ground near Lake J.B. Thomas. Some of those people have spoken in half-truths. Some have stayed silent. Some have been protected, deliberately or otherwise, by a system that was supposed to be looking for answers. Haley's case remains open. If you have any information about what happened to her, the Mitchell County Sheriff's Office and the Texas Rangers are the relevant authorities. A $15,000 reward for information leading directly to the arrest of her killer remains unclaimed. Her father is still waiting. And somewhere in Colorado City, Texas, in a town of 4,000 people where everyone knows your name, the truth about what happened to Hailey Dunn is still out there.